BRICS is the acronym for an association of 5 major emerging national economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The grouping was originally known as BRIC before the inclusion of South Africa in 2010. The BRICS members are all developing or newly industrialized countries, but they are distinguished by their large, fast-growing economies and significant influence on regional and global affairs. All 5 are G20 members. As of 2013, the 5 BRICS countries represent almost 3 billion people with a combined nominal GDP of $16.039 trillion and an estimated $4 trillion in combined foreign reserves. As of 2014, the BRICS nations represented 18% of the world economy. Brazil held the chair of the BRICS group in 2014, having hosted the group's 6th summit in 2014. The BRICS have received both praise and criticism from numerous quarters. The term, BRICS, was coined by economist Jim O'Neill in his publication, Building Better Global Economic BRICs. History: the foreign ministers of the initial 4 BRIC states met in New York City in September 2006, beginning a series of high-level meetings. A full-scale diplomatic meeting was held in Yekaterinburg, Russia, on May 16, 2008. First BRIC Summit: the BRIC grouping's first formal summit, also held in Yekaterinburg, commenced on June 16, 2009, with Luzhniki Lula da Silva, Dmitry Medvedev, Manmohan Singh, and Hu Jintao, the respective leaders of Brazil, Russia, India and China, all attending. The summit's focus was on means of improving the global economic situation and reforming financial institutions, and discussed how the 4 countries could better cooperate in the future. There was further discussion of ways that developing countries, such as the BRIC members, could become more involved in global affairs. In the aftermath of the Yekaterinburg summit, the BRIC nations announced the need for a new global reserve currency, which would have to be diversified, stable and predictable. Although the statement that was released did not directly criticize the perceived dominance of the US dollar a euro, something that Russia had criticized in the past a euro, it did spark a fall in the value of the dollar against other major currencies. Entry of South Africa: in 2010, South Africa began efforts to join the BRIC grouping, and the process for its formal admission began in August of that year. South Africa officially became a member nation on December 24, 2010, after being formally invited by the BRIC countries to join the group. The group was renamed BRICS a euro, with the S standing for South Africa a euro to reflect the group's expanded membership. In April 2011, the President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, attended the 2011 BRICS summit in Sanya, China, as a full member. Developments: the BRICS Forum, an independent international organization encouraging commercial, political and cultural cooperation between the BRICS nations, was formed in 2011. In June 2012, the BRICS nations pledged $75 billion to boost the lending power of the International Monetary Fund. However, this loan was conditional on IMF voting reforms. In late March 2013, during the 5th BRICS summit in Durban, South Africa, the member countries agreed to create a global financial institution which they intended to rival the Western-dominated IMF and World Bank. After the summit, the BRICS stated that they plan to finalize the arrangements for this new development bank by 2014. However, disputes relating to burden sharing and location have slowed down the agreements. At the BRICS leaders' meeting in St. Petersburg in September 2013, China committed $41 billion towards the pool. Brazil, India and Russia $18 billion each. And South Africa $5 billion. China, holder of the world's largest foreign exchange reserves and who is to contribute the bulk of the currency pool, wants a greater managing role, said one BRICS official. China also wants to be the location of the reserve. Brazil and India want the initial capital to be shared equally. We know that China wants more, said a Brazilian official. However, "We are still negotiating, there are no tensions arising yet." On October 11, 2013, Russia's finance minister Anton Siluanov said that a decision on creating a $100 billion fund designated to steady currency markets would be taken in early 2014. The Brazilian finance minister, Guido Mantega, stated that the fund would be created by March 2014. However, by April 2014, the Currency Reserve Pool and Development Bank had yet to be set up, and the date was rescheduled to 2015. One driver for the BRICS Development Bank is that the existing institutions primarily benefit extra BRICS corporations, and the political significance is notable because it allows BRICS member states to promote their interests abroad, and can highlight the strengthening positions of countries whose opinion is frequently ignored by their developed American and European colleagues. In March 2014, at a meeting on the margins of the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague, the BRICS foreign ministers issued a communiqué that noted with concern the recent media statement on the forthcoming G20 summit to be held in Brisbane in November 2014. The custodianship of the G20 belongs to all member states equally, and no one member state can unilaterally determine its nature and character. In light of the tensions surrounding the 2014 Crimean crisis, the ministers remarked that the escalation of hostile language, sanctions and counter-sanctions, and force does not contribute to a sustainable and peaceful solution, according to international law, including the principles and purposes of the United Nations Charter. This was in response to the statement of Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop, who had said earlier that Putin might be barred from attending the G20 summit in Brisbane. In April 2014, Russian Ambassador-at-Large Vadim Lukov remarked that the dollar may be replaced by the ruble and other national currencies of the BRICS countries, and that a large part of the fund goes towards saving the euro and the national currencies of developed countries. Given that governance of the IMF is in the hands of Western powers, there is little hope for assistance from the IMF in case of an emergency. That is why the currency reserve pool would come in very handy. In July 2014, the governor of the Russian Central Bank, Elvira Nabiullina, said that the BRICS partners the establishment of a system of multilateral swaps that will allow to transfer resources to one or another country, if needed, in an article which concluded that if the current trend continues, soon the dollar will be abandoned by most of the significant global economies and it will be kicked out of the global trade finance. Washington's bullying will make even former American allies choose the anti-dollar alliance instead of the existing dollar-based monetary system. Over the weekend of July 13, 2014, when the final game of the World Cup was held, and in advance of the BRICS Fortaleza summit, Putin met his homologue Dilma Rousseff to discuss the BRICS Development Bank, and sign some other bilateral accords on air defense, gas and education. Rousseff said that the BRICS countries are among the largest in the world and cannot content themselves in the middle of the 21st century with any kind of dependency. The Fortaleza summit was followed by a BRICS meeting with the UNASIA presidents in Brasilia, where the Development Bank and the Monetary Fund were introduced. The Development Bank will have capital of $50 billion, with each country contributing $10 billion, while the Monetary Fund will have $100 billion at its disposal. On July 15, 2014, the first day of the BRICS Sixth Summit in Fortaleza, Brazil, the group of emerging economies signed the long-anticipated document to create the $100 billion BRICS Development Bank and a reserve currency pool worth over another $100 billion. Documents on cooperation between BRICS export credit agencies and an agreement of cooperation on innovation were also inked. Summits. The grouping has held annual summits since 2009, with member countries taking turns to host. Prior to South Africa's admission, 2 BRIC summits were held, in 2009 and 2010. The first 5-member BRICS summit was held in 2011. The most recent BRICS summit took place in Fortaleza, Brazil, from 14 to July 16, 2014. Member countries. Economic data is sourced from the most recent IMF figures and given in US dollars. Potential members. Indonesia and Turkey have been mentioned as candidates for full membership of the BRICS, while Argentina, Egypt, Iran, Nigeria and Syria have expressed interest in joining BRICS. Criticism: in 2012, Hu Jintao, who at the time was president of China, described the BRICS countries as defenders and promoters of developing countries and a force for world peace. Some analysts have highlighted potential divisions and weaknesses in the grouping, including significant economic instabilities, disagreements between the members over UN Security Council reform, and India and China's disputes over territorial issues. Current BRICS leaders. See also, 6th BRICS Summit, New Development Bank, Economic Cooperation Organization, Emerging and Growth Leading Economies, G8+5, Group of 2, Group of 77, IBSA Dialogue Forum, a tripartite grouping of India, Brazil and South Africa, List of BRICS leaders, List of potential superpowers, MINT, and Group of Middle Powers of Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria and Turkey. Next 11, references. External links, Centre for Rising Powers, University of Cambridge, the BRICS Poster Euronews website with a focus on the BRICS, BRICS Information Centre University of Toronto. Retrieved June 29, 2013. BRIC, S. Nations have become growth markets for the world economy and are no longer emerging markets. China Daily. April 13, 2011. Retrieved June 17, 2013. BRICS flame continues to shine. Indrasin. February 29, 2012. Retrieved June 17, 2013. Goldman's O'Neill, Time to Move Beyond BRICS. MarketWatch.com November 21, 2011. Retrieved June 17, 2013. United States should learn from emerging powers such as India and Brazil in the economic arena. Reuters October 14, 2011. Retrieved June 17, 2013. BRICS a Euro multi-format cooperation. Russian Business Council for Cooperation with India. 2011. Retrieved June 17, 2013. James D. Sidaway Geographies of Development, New Maps, New Visions. The Professional Geographer, 64 1, 49-62 retrieved August 8, 2013. The World Factbook. SIA.gov. Retrieved July 15, 2014.